The John LeBang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John LeBang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings, and alert the media. The banger is on the radio. Welcome to another 60 minutes of the John LeBang Show. Our final episode for the month of June, as well as it's sending us off into our summer schedule. And if you're unaware of what our summer schedule is, you can head to our website. That's www.jlebang.com and check it out and find out when new episodes will be playing, if we're running any reruns, or if we're running specials. There's all sorts of that information available to you on the website. While you're on the website, you should check out all the other things going on. If you missed a show or you find a archive that's interesting, you can do that by going to the website, and the archives are there, and you might see a title you're like, wow, that sounds cool, let's check it out. We do little snippets as well. If you're in a band, you can go to the website there and you can sign up, register as a band that can be played on the John LeBang Show, and then send us a song along with it. You can also, shortly anyways, it's not quite available, but you'll be able to request songs right from the website as well, which will make things really easy as we are trying to simplify your listening experience and give you more options and more on-demand episodes for you to, listen to. Now, we are having a great show tonight, as we have Mr. Derek Shelmerdine coming in to join us again with another installment of Rock and Roll Unraveled. That'll be in the second and third segments. We're having a little bit of Skype issues. What else do we have coming up on the show? Well, we have the top 10 banger affiliates for the month of June. We've got a brand new segment that we're airing. We're testing out, almost like a pilot episode. And that is Shady's 5 Reasons. And boy, oh boy, it's a great concept. Shady can't wait to start it. We're testing it out tonight, and you'll be able to catch that a little bit later on in the show. But before we get to all that, before we do any of that, I want to tell you a little bit of what I did last night. I went and seen Kenny Hill at a local venue, and that was a good time. If you haven't heard Kenny Hill Group, they're an amazing band. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, guitar player in the metro area. He can do things with his pinky on that guitar that I can't do with any of my other fingers. He's just amazing. Sounds kind of weird. Shouldn't be talking about pinkies on the radio show. That gives people strange ideas. They get things caught up in their head. And they're like, what do you mean, pinky? Because people don't know, if they're not a guitar player, how difficult it is to get your pinky to do what the rest of your fingers can do. That pinky, it takes some work. And if you're not a guitar player, you really don't know that. Although the people who have attempted guitar after they played Guitar Hero once or twice, I had a neighbor that did that. He played Guitar Hero a couple times, and he was like, man, I'm going to buy me a guitar. So he goes out and buys a guitar. I don't know, spends $400, $500, $600 on a guitar. Japanese Fender of some sort. Korean made. It was a foreign Fender. It wasn't American made. And he gave up on it. It's not even the same thing. And he ended up giving me the guitar for helping him out one weekend. And I just found it funny because he told me that story. He was like, oh, well, I was playing Guitar Hero. And I thought, man, this is awesome. I'm going to pick me up a real guitar. I wonder how many people did that. Guitar Hero, turned them on to guitar, and then they bought a guitar and then figured out a guitar is way harder to learn than Guitar Hero. What's there, 5 buttons, 6 buttons on a Guitar Hero controller? There are unlimited amount of finger positionings and chords and all kinds of different things on the guitar that you need to be a mathematician to understand. So it was a good show. They played a lot of the stuff that you don't normally hear them play, and it was pretty darn good. It was actually surprisingly a little bit heavier than I thought they would be. But and they're only a 3-piece, which is another amazing thing that they're so good as a 3-piece. But all the musicians in that band are pretty amazing. So I'm sure you tuned in not to hear about my stories, and I know you guys want to get to Derek, that you're like, John, come on, get him on. Well, he'll be with us here in the second segment. Don't worry. We have a few news segments that I'd like to discuss to begin the evening. We got this one from the New York Post. Now, the New York Post is very much like the New York Times. I've caught them giving out fake news before and falsified news. The New York Post has, on occasion, retracted and made it public that they've retracted. I've yet to see the New York Times, not to say they haven't, but I've yet to see the New York Times retract any of their fake news that they've produced. But according to the New York Post, the headline reads, sketchy firm behind Trump's dossier is stalling investigators. So there's this group that the Democrats hired when all their emails were hacked into and were given to WikiLeaks. We spoke about this subject when we had the Comey hearing dissection on the show, where we dissected the entire 3 hours or whatever testimony that James Comey had in front of the congressional hearings there. It was brought to light that this group that the Democrats hired gave information to the FBI. They didn't let the FBI see it, and this firm, along with the Democrat Party, said it was the Russians who hacked it, even though the FBI never saw the actual details, and they're just going on secondhand information from the Democrats. Now that we got that little backstory, this firm called Fusion GPS, they describe themselves as a research and strategic intelligence firm founded by 3 former Wall Street journalist reporters or investigative reporters. But according to congressional sources, they say it's actually an opposition research group for the Democrats. And according to my research that I've done into the group, the firm there, I would agree with that term, that definition. Now, the founders, they're more like political activists than they are journalists, on top of all that. And they definitely have a pro-Hillary, anti-Trump stance when it comes to their political bias. Now, according to this congressional source, these weren't mercenaries or hired guns that produced this dossier that spawned the entire, or at least the majority of this Russia investigation into hacking the U.S. election, which according to all sources, all references, including Comey, these hackings affected 0 of the election results. none of the votes were changed. They didn't involve anything when it comes to the actual election. So the only thing these hacks did affect was making it public, all the dirt on the Democrats. And because the Democrats had less than adequate cybersecurity, they fell prey to whomever hacked them and then gave it to WikiLeaks. The Republicans, they had attempted hacks and they had the proper security, or at least enough preventative security to foil the apparent hacking into the Republican committee. So the whole hacking thing that's spawned all this investigation is not that they hacked the government per se. It's they hacked the Democrat Party. Whoever did the hacking. And since the FBI can't get any evidence from the Democrat Party, and they have to rely on a second party, another source who apparently did the work for the Democrat Party, well, then we're left with the question, how do we know it is actually Russia? Especially since everything right now that we're made available to us, that is made available to us, it pretty much states Russia had no bearing on the election. Now, maybe the leaked emails from John Podesta and others, maybe those affected the election, especially maybe the ones that point to the fact that the Democrat Party stole the election from Bernie Sanders. And I'm speaking of the Democrat nomination. They stole it from him, which entailed probably stole the election and gave it to Trump. Bernie versus Trump would have been a lot closer than Hillary versus Trump. There was already a anti-Hillary sentiment out there. There were people like myself who were going to make sure by any means that we could figure out, which meant our vote, we either could vote third party, sit out, or vote against her. That was our choice. We didn't want Hillary in there. Speaking of that, and we got also some other news that kind of relates to this. So we hear that Donald Trump is so hated. Well, since the election in November, with all the investigations, with all the stays and the temporary stoppages of his immigration changes, and all the delays in the health care, and all the delays in the tax cuts, and the wall, and all this stuff, they're supposedly, according to the mainstream manufactured news, the people are losing faith in Donald Trump. And they're not liking him as much. Except when they go to the polls. We've had 4 special elections since the election where Donald Trump was made president. And in all 4, no matter how bad the mainstream media and how much money was put into the campaign in these congressional spots, the Democrats have lost all 4. Now, you would think if the country was so anti-Donald Trump, they would have at least won one of those. Probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4. And if you went by the reporting and the supposed polls that came out prior to the election, leading up to the election, now we remember the polls in the 2016 presidential election and how far off they were and how manipulated they were. Well, apparently they were the same thing. They were off And they were manipulated, sampling more Democrats than Republicans, trying to affect the way the voter went to vote by trying to put in their mind which way the wind blows. And again, 4-0 now. The Democrats are skunked, and the poor snowflakes, and you know what? They're not snowflakes. There's that derogatory term that a lot of the right-wingers have placed on the poor Democrats who have been losing their minds ever since Donald Trump got elected. They've been calling them snowflakes. They're not snowflakes. They're popsicles. That's what they are, and they are melting. And they are melting at an incredible rate. See, popsicles are a little fruity. Snowflakes are nice and pretty. Popsicles are fruity. And they're pretty stiff. Anyways, folks, as you can hear, we've got the music coming. That means we've got to go to break. When we return, Rock and Roll Unraveled with Derek Shelmerdine.
Don't go anywhere now.
We're just taking a brief pause for the cause. The John LeBank Show will be right back. You can bet on it. If you are elderly, disabled, receiving SSI or Medicaid, and you have a medical need or require assistance with daily housework, shopping, grooming, medication, you may qualify for housekeeping at no cost. Call now. VIP Home Healthcare, 248-579-3805. VIP Home Healthcare, there when you need them. That's 248-579-3805. Check out the new book from Derek Shelmerdine,
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It tells the story of rock and roll from its roots right up until the mid-70s punk.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Not just the music, but also the events that shaped the music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It includes the backgrounds to recording sessions, singles, album releases, births and deaths, epic concerts, and festivals.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Shelmerdine has made a painstaking effort to document pretty much every event that would prove significant in shaping popular music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Purchase the book at www.rockandrollunraveled.com. Follow them at Twitter at R&R Unraveled, and look them up on Facebook at Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
By author Derek Shelmerdine.
Available now. You're listening to the John LeBank Show.
It's hydroponic radio for your brain, man.
Feel smarter yet? All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to bring you broadcasting excellence, we're in another installment of Rock and Roll Unraveled with our good friend, Derek Shelmerdine. He's got lots of great information about some classic rock bands. Derek, welcome back.
I mean, the Beatles themselves, wow. The June-July period for them was absolutely amazing. I mean, back in 57, on the 6th of July, was when it all started. John Lennon actually met Paul McCartney. Paul came along to one of John's gigs in Wilton. And that's a very genteel affair where all the local church-going people will have a fair, basically, and bring tea and cakes. But it started the biggest rock and roll band in the history of the world. And by the time we get to 1966, 20th of June, released in America that album called Yesterday and Today. And it was originally released with the notorious Butcher cover, which had the Beatles sitting down in white butcher outfits, raw meat, and decapitated and dismembered dolls. Now, the record-buying public and the retailers took a dim view of this, and Capitol withdrew it and had a new cover, which is called the trunk cover, which is simply a big travel case.
Is there a story behind the morbid cover?
No, it was just decided that they wanted something a little more standoutish, so they went for this quite way out cover, and it didn't go down at all well with fans or retailers. When they withdrew the album, they didn't actually put a new cover on it. They just had a sticky cover of the new front cover that they pasted on. So with the early ones that were withdrawn, reissued with the original cover and the stick on, you could actually peel off the trunk cover, to reveal the butcher cover. There's some interesting values on all the combinations of sleeves for yesterday and today.
That gives it a little bit of a novelty.
And a lot of people tore it off. People damaged covers. So it's one of the weirdest sort of collectibles that the Beatles have got. But by the time we get, well, about the same time actually, 24th of June 1966, they actually set off on their final world tour. And took in Germany, Japan, Philippines, and the USA. Well, it was quite disastrous, really. They played Hamburg for the last time. In Japan, they played the Budokan, which is the spiritual home of the martial arts, and a lot of Japanese took a dim view, and they were receiving death threats. When they went on to the Philippines, Imelda Marcos invited them around for tea, and Brian Epstein politely refused. They had to get away, and Imelda Marcos took a very dim view of this, and they had to have police protection to get them back to the airport. And the American tour was even more disastrous. This was where, just before they arrived, Date Book magazine, a sort of girl teen magazine, reprinted part of John Lennon's interview that he did with the London Evening newspaper. And this was his more popular than Jesus. What he actually said was, Christianity will go, it will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I'm right and I will be proved right. We're more popular than Jesus now. I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity. Jesus was all right, but his disciples were thick and ordinary. It's them twisting it that ruins it for me. That's what he actually said, and it caused, interesting enough, it caused no feedback whatsoever in the UK. But when that was published in America, there was a wide outcry. DJs were organising burnings of Beatles books and albums. The Ku Klux Klan picketed gigs. They received lots of death threats, and they actually feared they'd be shot on stage. All in all, it was quite a reaction. But that was when they decided to end touring. I mean, this is sort of around the before they got into the Pepper. And the recordings were getting far more complicated and would have been hard to do on stage. They were losing interest in touring as well because they themselves. And I think all this culminated in them deciding to become a studio band.
And thank God they became a studio band on many levels, because some of the best music they produced was during that time period.
Oh, absolutely. That was when they really came into their own as songwriters. I mean, we couldn't do a June issue of the show without mentioning the fact that Sgt. Pepper was released 50 years ago to the day on the 1st of June in the UK and the 2nd of June in America.
And that has Strawberry Fields on it, and that has an interesting story behind the recording of that song.
That's right. That was one of the first songs. Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane were the first to be recorded, and the record company was very keen to get a single from the Beatles. They needed to put one out, so they took those. Instead of them going on the album, they went on a double A-side single. And it proved a disaster, because in the UK, that was the first single that missed number one spots. They'd had 11 consecutive number ones up until then, but they released that as a double A-side, and it missed the number one slot, because they would have had 8 consecutive number ones in the UK if that had been a number one.
So they probably would have been better off just having the single A-side with a B-side song versus the double A-side. Absolutely,
and the worst of it was that because they'd issued as a single, they wouldn't onto Sgt. Pepper album. So what was potentially one of the, or two of the strongest songs on the album, never made it to the final cut. But the album itself is interesting because there are lots of clues apparently for lovers of conspiracy theories about for the Paul is dead theory. One of them on the clue on the cover is that Paul's the only one with his back to the camera, and his head is in line with the lyrics of Without You. So it's an interesting album all round that.
And they played that up because they took that onto Abbey Road as well, where he walked across the street barefoot. So they kept playing that up.
That's right.
Yep.
And if you look at the cover of Abbey Road, there's I think it's a VW park there, and it's a registration 28 if, and that would have been Paul McCartney's age if he was alive. But I mean, there are a whole bunch of things on the Sgt. Pepper cover and in the songs. There's a reference to after the original introduction, as it goes into Little Help from My Friends, it says, to introduce to you Billy Shears and the Incredible Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, and it was thought that the Billy Shears was the replacement Paul McCartney. He's actually on tour and can be seen in both the USA and Brazil across the 7th of July until the 20th of October, and Ringo's also on tour later in the year, November, just across the USA, and his band includes Todd Rundgren, so that should be a good gig.
Right, he puts together an all-star band and just goes on tour every once in a while, and it's a great time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that would be, well, they'd both be great bands to see.
Yeah, Paul McCartney, when I saw him play the Super Bowl, and that's the one of the most impressive Super Bowl shows I've ever seen. He was just awesome on that show. So, yeah, if you got a chance to go see Paul McCartney, you really should take the opportunity.
Never actually seen him. I'd love to catch him somewhere.
And with how the musicians of that time period are slowly fading away, you got to take that opportunity when you have it. So you got Leonard Skinner up next, eh?
That's right. I mean, they were in the recording studio on the 30th of June 1971, cutting material that was supposed to be on their first album, and they cut a lot older stuff through into 1972, but it was never really deemed strong enough to go onto an album, and their first album didn't actually arrive till August 1973, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. But what happened was that the material got released as a result, basically, of the sad loss with the plane crash in October 77, when Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, and his sister Cassie were killed in the plane crash. And 1978, they released the material from those 71-72 sessions as the album Skynyrd's First and Last. But on the 24th of June 1970, they released a classic, Sweet Home Alabama. And that was recorded or written as a reply to a couple of Neil Young songs where he'd been kind of a pop at the States with his song Southern Man on After the Gold Rush and Alabama itself on Harvest.
So you're always full of information,
yeah.
Derek.
And well, we do our best. But the Skynyrd's are on a very big tour at the moment. I mean, they're really beaving away. They're touring, or their tour is in America at the moment, and it goes on to Argentina, Chile, Brazil, and finishes off in Jamaica the 22nd of January next year. So that's really active for them. And they've still got original member Gary Rossington, the guitarist.
Yeah, and pretty much that there's only one member left in the whole band, right? Original member?
That's right. Yeah, one way or another, people have mostly shuffled off this mortal coil, as they say, either in car crashes or plane crashes.
Incredible.
But they're still a great band.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listening there. Don't go anywhere. The John LeBang Show's going to be right back. Just ask the hillbilly.
That's right. Right after this.
What about me? Maybe next time.
Fans, do you need a video for your brand new song but don't have a lot of money? Then contact John LeBang. His reasonable rates, professional look, and fast turnarounds will help get that song off the ground. Contact him at jlebang.com.
CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. Their billers and managers are all dedicated to working for you to increase your profits. For more information, call CRRM at 248-579-3805. CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. And allow me to do a little bit of self-promoting. If you're enjoying the John LeBang Show and you want to know more, then feel free to go to our website. That's www.jlebang.com. There's archives of the show, Banger TV, interviews, all sorts of things to keep you interacted and, well, not bored. Now, if you want to contact the John LeBang Show for whatever reason, maybe you want to send us hate mail, maybe you want to send us pictures of your girlfriend, or maybe you just want to submit music to the show. Well, don't do it this way. We have a place on the website that you got to go to submit your music. But for any other things you want to contact the John LeBang Show, just type in the email address, jlebang@live.com. That's right, JLEBANG at live.com. Now, if you're on Twitter and you want to follow us on Twitter, just look us up at John LeBang. We've got a Facebook page, that's the John LeBang Show, so like that page. And we've got 2 YouTube channels. One's called Banger Incorporated, the other one, the John LeBang Show, so please subscribe to those channels. This half hour is brought to you by Pane and the Glass Window Cleaning. For a beautiful sparkling shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass Commercial and Residential Window Cleaning. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
Forces of darkness, the treasonable Mayans who collaborate, must, can, and will be wiped from the face of the earth.
Now we got the monkeys, huh? Those monkeys.
Yeah. One of the great highlights of June 1967 was Monterey Festival. It wasn't technically the first pop festival to be held, but it was certainly the most famous from that time. And it was co-organised by John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas. The Who and Jimi Hendrix were both on, and neither wanted to follow the other, and they settled on who would on the toss of a coin, and the Who went on first. Grateful Dead refused to allow their set to be used on the movie of the event.
Really?
And Janis Joplin, early days with Big Brother and the Holding Company, she was so impressed everybody that she was invited back the following day and repeated the set. Also on the menu that day, as it were, was Mike Bloomfield's new band, LEBANG. They played their debut gig there. But what was great about Monterey was that the Monkees were in the audience, and they saw Hendrix and thought, oh, he's pretty good, and invited him to support them on their US tour, because Jimi Hendrix had only just got off the ground, basically. And I'm not sure if this is first, but it was certainly, I think it probably was his first appearance in America. So invited to join the Monkees, who were massive at this particular time, as an act. And there's a great urban myth that, Jimi Hendrix didn't stay with the Monkees tour very long, and the great urban myth was that the right wing of the American Revolution, rather conservative set of ladies, petitioned the promoter to pull Jimi Hendrix off the tour. But the reality is that Jimi Hendrix was getting a little bit bored of playing his entire set to 10 and 12, 11-year-old girls, all chanting, "We want the Monkees, Monkees," right through his set, that he decided that he'd quite like to move on and do something else. And there was an Australian journalist called Lillian with the tour, and she actually devised this myth about the Daughters of the American Revolution. I thought that was a great story.
Definitely. And yeah, I can see why Jimmy wouldn't want to be playing in front of those crowds, because of the the Monkees were a completely different style than Jimmy.
And their audience was completely different. The Monkees' audience was the early days of teeny boppers with 10, 12, 13-year-old girls making up the audience. It's actually Happy Birthday, 9th of July, 1947, to Mitch Mitchell, who was the drummer with Jimi Hendrix. And he was also with the Riot Squad and Georgie Fame before that. A couple of great bands to look up If anybody's looking for some of the kind of music that Mitch Mitchell was playing before he joined Jimi Hendrix. But the Monkees tour, that really pretty extensive across the USA, Canada, then back to the USA, and then he goes off to New Zealand and Australia. They're doing that from the 11th of August to the 16th of December. It's actually a two-monkey tour. It's Mickey Dolenz and Peter Tork. I believe Davy Jones died in 2012. But since the Monkees actually finished, I mean, their TV show, the first show aired on the 12th of September 6, and the last show was the 25th of March 1968. So this tour is billed as their 50th anniversary tour.
Interesting. I used to watch that TV show when I was a little kid, the reruns of it. I remember watching all that stuff. Daydream Believer. It was really interesting how they had were a story, and then they would incorporate their songs in the story. It was really cool. It was. I mean, I think they took the idea from Elvis movies or something.
Very similar kind of feel. Absolutely. And the Beatles did some cartoon TV as well around this sort of time.
Yep, I remember watching
the same kind of thing. Yeah. But Pink Floyd, to move on to a slightly different area of the rock and roll world, I mean, Pink Floyd had a very interesting time around June and July over the years. In 1968, the 29th of June, they released Saucer Full of Secrets, second album, and that actually featured both David Gilmour and Syd Barrett, who was the original, well, he was the leader, very much the leader and guardian light of the band. He wrote most of them and he was the lead guitarist. But sadly, he got a little bit too far down the mind-bending drugs road, and he eventually went off into seclusion in his home town of Cambridge. In fact, the last contact they had with Syd Barrett, spookily enough, was on the 5th of June 1975 at Abbey Road Studios, when they were recording Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which was actually about Syd Barrett. And when he walked into the studio, nobody actually recognized him. His hair, he put on a lot of weight, and he was just nothing like the guy they remembered. And sadly, that's the last time I saw him. But interestingly, on the 6th of July 1977, the Pink Floyd were playing a gig at Olympic Stadium, Montreal, and it was a really raucous gig. The fans were letting off firecrackers and making a lot of noise. And Roger Waters really was not happy with the way the whole thing was going. And there was one fan who got a little bit too close on some of the netting, and he spat at him famously. And it was that time that he got the idea for the wall. How he enjoyed performing, but he hated the audience. And he thought, what a great idea if we could build a wall between the audience and the band. And that was where about 1979, a couple of years later, the Wall album appeared. And it all sort of stemmed from that gig. I mean, to be fair, David Gilmour wasn't happy either. He didn't return for the regular encore where they do a sort of blues jam. And Snowy White was in the surrogate band in the Wall, and he handled the encore guitar solo. So that must have been quite a concert to have been at.
Yeah, incredible.
The last concert Roger Waters performed with the Floyd was on the 17th of June 1981 at Earl's Court in London, where they were performing the Wall, because they never actually toured with their last album. The Wall was the last tour that they actually did, but they did get together once more. Pigs Did Fly. Pink Floyd and Roger Waters reunited for the G8 concerts on 2nd of July 2005. I mean, they did about a 20-minute set, which was pretty damn good. It was also Rick Wright's birthday on the 28th of 1943. And he was there right from the very beginning. Interestingly, before they were called the Pink Floyd, they were called things like Sigma Sick and the Abdabs. And The Abdabs had various variations. They were called at times the Screaming Abdabs, and they all met at College. And what band names they used was the Architectural Abdabs, which I think is one of the greatest names that's ever graced the halls of rock.
No, that's
Roger
a great
Waters
name.
has got a new album out at the moment. Just out.
Oh, really? He's an excellent artist solo-wise as well. He's had just a great career. Not a lot of people have heard his solo stuff, but, I mean, if they spent the time and just listened to it. I believe he did an album called The Hitchhiker, which was great, too. But he's got a new album out, eh?
That's right. Yeah, that Hitchhiker Guide was a great album. And he also released, his last album was Amused to Death. Great album. But that was 10 years ago. This is called Us and Them, which is actually a track on Dark Side of the Moon. So there might well be some relevance to that. And as well as some off the new album, he's apparently doing songs from Dark Side of the Moon, Animals, Wish You Were Here on the Wall. So that should be a really good, mostly the USA, and some gigs in Canada from the 27th of June to the 29th of October.
And they're going to be touring the United States and Canada.
That's right. Most of those gigs are in the United States.
Well, I'm going to have to see if they're playing around here because I would love to see that. You want to come out? We'll go watch it. We'll go watch a show here in Detroit. Come on out.
That'll be brilliant. We'll have to do that one of these days. You can get all these actual venues and dates are available through the link onto the website. So anybody looking for the dates and the venues, the links are all to the official tour sites. They're not to ticket sites as such. I'll just say one little fact about Dark Side of the Moon was that it's been 730 consecutive weeks.
Yeah, once it got there, it hasn't come off.
That's right.
That's an amazing. I mean, just that in itself tells you how great Pink Floyd actually is.
No, I was just going to say they really were one of the trailblazers of moving rock to a whole new level.
Yeah, but their recording quality was ahead of the game. Every album was like new and interesting, and the sound quality was way better than their competitors, or their peers is probably more like it.
Absolutely. I mean, quadraphonic music really was designed to listen to their music. They were actually one of the pioneers of quad. I think it was something like the Absinthe coordinator at one of their gigs. And what it was essentially a joystick that's linked between. They had the four corners of the auditorium, and they had this joystick that enabled the front desk sound guy to actually manipulate the sound across the various speakers.
Sound video games.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's awesome. That's a great little tidbit there. Well, Derek, we're running up against the clock. Why don't you give everybody your contact information, the websites, your Twitter and everything so they can follow you?
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, this and lots of other information on the website, which rockandrollunraveled.com. And I do a lot of Twittering, and that's at RNR Unraveled, and Facebook, and it's all about rock and roll stuff, which is, the Facebook is at Rock and Unroll Unraveled.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us again, and we'll see you next month, I'm sure, and you'll have more interesting stories, tidbits, and who's on tour. That's just great. Thank you, Derek, for joining us again.
Thanks a lot, John. Really enjoyed it.
Where do you think you're going?
The John LeBang Show will be right back.
So grab a beer and a smoke and sit your butt back down. Stay right here.
Powerful, epic music by Toothbox Roll. Life-changing lyrics come in every style, empowering humanity to finally unlock the chains of bondage. Experience the edgy side of positive music and rock your world today. From Primal to Divine, available now at sassyalternativemusic.com.
If you want to contact the John LeBang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John LeBang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John LeBang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we are winding down here, the time ticking away. The notorious group called Anonymous is claiming that NASA is about to announce that they have evidence of alien life. That notorious group, Anonymous. And they're claiming some of this stuff is stemming from, well, let me read you from the story from The Sun. Humans are about to discover alien life, believes NASA, according to the latest video from the hacktivist group Anonymous. The hackers published a YouTube clip which claims a NASA scientist made the announcement at the last meeting of the U.S. Science, Space, and Technology Committee. It comes after NASA's Kepler Space Observatory discovered 219 potential new worlds in other solar systems. Potentially, they may not be new worlds as well. We're getting back to guessing again. Yet they don't have the proof yet. They're on the verge. We've been on the verge for 50 years, according to whichever scientist you talk to. One of the tweets from NASA, Kepler and K2, Planet Galore, our NASA Kepler Space Telescope has identified 219 potential worlds in our galaxy. Our galaxy that we have barely scratched the surface in traveling. We barely have gotten out of our solar system with all our probes, all our satellites, all our missions. They might be new worlds, maybe. There's a potential there. There's also a potential they're not, and we're feeding you a line of crap. Sometimes I think NASA and these other groups that get behind this, when they're out of the spotlight too long, they get nervous, and they just come out and throw something out at us every once in a while to keep them relevant. But let's get back to the article here. Taking into account all of the different activities and missions that are searching for alien life, we are on the verge of making one of the most unprecedented discoveries in history, according to Professor Zubinchin on his Twitter last week. He added, wow, 219 potential new planets. Data shows us that most stars are home to at least one planet. Are we alone? All the speculation from scientists. I don't know how many times I've had to detail this from the current day scientists. There's yet no factual proof yet, but they're hoping. And now, better than ever, there's potential that one of these far out planets from some distant solar system that we'll never reach in our lifetime, that we will probably never be able to communicate if we did reach, or even if we could find a way to send waves, radio waves to them, so that both species could understand each other. Regardless of all that, there's a potential maybe that these places, these rocks in space that they determined are possible planets, they might have alien life on it. So yet, they're not sure they're planets yet, but they're guessing that if they are planets, there might be some with life on it. Woo! The Kepler telescope has been hunting for planets since it was launched into orbit in 2009. It can spot tiny drops in the distant star's brightness when the planet crosses in front of it. That's called the transit. These things floating through space, rocks, planets, moons, whatever they might be, they're seeing a shadow when it passes in front of the distant sun out there. And that's how they're making their assumption that there's, potentially planets with potential life on it. The latest groundbreaking discoveries were amongst 2,335 planets beyond our solar system that have been verified after being found by Kepler. Being verified that they are there. They didn't say they're verified as planets. Well, I guess they did. Except, how do you verify that something is a planet from so far away? From taking a picture of it, and a pretty dim picture of it. Of these, only 30 planets have been found to be Earth-like planets, potentially able to host life. So now, out of a bunch of little rock things that they've taken picture of and they've identified as this or that, they've named it. Out of all those 2,300 plus rocks in space that they call planets, only 30 of them potentially could have life. I don't know how they determine the difference between the two being so far, but I guess they figure that out. Their telescopes are that good. This carefully measured catalog is the foundation for directly answering one of the astronomy's most compelling question. How many planets like our Earth are in the galaxy? I want to ask a question. How do they even know that other planets that are not like Earth can't sustain life of a different sort that we don't know of? Here they are guessing that there's possible life based on what we have here on Earth, and they're guessing by taking a picture of something very far away, beyond anything we could ever reach, zooming in on it, bringing it in close, measuring what kind of planet it is, and then they're judging that only 30 of them could possibly house life like ours. That's great if we need to escape our planet and have to head for one of them, and hopefully they're right. But what if there's life on planets that are not like the Earth, that are in the cold zones or that are in the hot zones? There's that potential as well. And even though they're making a determination that only 30 of these might have life, they don't know if one has life or 1,000 have life. And they don't know of any other style of life form, any version of a creature beyond what is on this planet. We don't know what the mysteries of the universe can create and how certain life forms could adapt in environments we could never even tolerate. You gotta love scientists. Hey, Joan, you ready for me yet? Hell yeah, I am. Come on in, Shady. All right, then. I can't wait to do this new segment. Well, you gave it away there. Ladies and gentlemen, as we said earlier, as Shady intimated, we have a new segment here on the John LeBang Show that we're going to be trying out, and it's called Shady's 5 Reasons. Hell yeah, that's my new segment called Shady's 5 Reasons. And why don't you explain to the listeners what this new segment is about? Well, that's easy, John. Every week, I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons. Well, what do you mean? Well, like this week, I'm going to give you the top 5 reasons why you have to wait so damn long in line at the grocery store. And every week the subject's going to change, right? Damn right it is. Here are Shady's top 5 reasons why you have to wait so damn long in the grocery store. Number 5, the checkout cheater. What's that, Shady? Well, if you shut up, I'll tell you. Oh, sorry. The checkout cheater are the people who get in the 15 items or less line and they have more than 15 items. Oh, that just happened to me. And it's damn annoying.
It's like, lady, don't you know how to count? If your basket is full, you don't have 15 items. At number 4 is the motor stroller.
The what? The motor stroller?
That's right, John. This is the person who is just too damn lazy to walk while they're shopping, and they gotta drive around that little cart, and then they block up all the aisles, and you can't get through because there's 3 or 4 of them every time you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, I always thought that was for handicapped people.
Listen, last I checked, being fat wasn't handicapped. Now, can I continue, John?
Sure, go ahead.
At number 3 is the credit zipper.
The credit zipper? What the hell is that?
Well, that's the idiot who buys a pack of gum on his credit card and it has a chip in it.
Oh, and those chip readers are so slow.
I know. It's like, dude, don't you have $1 in cash? If you can't buy a pack of gum in cash, then you don't need a pack of gum. At number 2, the training tards.
The training tards? What the hell is a training tard?
Well, it's when you get in line and they're training a stupid person, and the person training them is dumber than the person they're training. And a simple transaction takes 10 minutes. And the number 1 reason why you have to wait so damn long in line at the grocery store is the bridge card broker.
Is that somebody who breaks something in the checkout line?
No, that's the person who uses their bridge card to buy groceries, but then goes over their limit, and then they can't decide which items to remove. Then you're stuck in line for 15 minutes while you're watching everybody else in all the other lines heading home, which then causes people to become the checkout cheater. And that ain't cool. It's bad enough that the rest of us are paying for your dinner, but because you're too stupid to know how much money you got on your card, you gotta slow us down from our dinner, the people who pay for their own food.
Well, that was fun, Chitty.
I hope the people like it.
Well, they can leave comments in the chat room and let us know if they liked it.
They better like it, because I want to keep doing it. Anyways, John, I'm out of here. Talk to you later. Goodbye, everyone.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for yet another week of sonic vibrations known as The John LeBang Show. I really want to thank all of my affiliate stations. I appreciate each and every one of you for letting me be in a part of your network. I want to remind everybody that we have the summer scheduling coming into play now. If you need to find out what the exact schedule looks like, go to the website. That's www.jlebang.com, and you'll be able to get a detailed visual look at how it breaks down over the next few months. Bands, we're taking your songs for hour number 3, so make sure to submit your music at jlebang.com and follow the links that will direct you on how to submit your music. Now, for all of our listeners out there, if you were paying attention tonight, you know what bands Derek Shelmerdine and myself spoke of. And we want you to go to the website, and we have a contest tonight. And if you go there and click the link and tell us 2 of the bands that we discussed tonight, there were a bunch, 2 of the bands that we discussed tonight, you will have your chance to win. And we're going to do the first one tonight. The very first one to send it in. You'll have your chance to win a fabulous prize from the John LeBang Show. Thank you, each and every one of you, for listening. I deeply appreciate all just fabulous fans and listeners. You guys make it worth it to come here each and every week. Bigger and better things are coming for the John LeBang Show. Even, you won't believe this, we might be on 50 stations come September. That's right. That's the projected goal, and we almost have that many locked in. So until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, and until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, this is John LeBang signing off from the Banger Studios.
We have liftoff. Tune in again next week. Same time, same space, same station.